Okay, hello, my name is Damien. I am going to be looking at LGBTQ youth today, more specifically, how to develop an LGBTQ inclusive classroom. So the definition of an LGBTQ youth would be any youth identifying as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, or questioning. Youth primarily use the term LGBTQ because it's a more inclusive terminology. It's not um, very like specific or meant for a certain group. Classroom inclusivity is teaching approaches that address the need of all students and developing lessons that avoid bias and include positive representation. So in 2020, the Trevor Project conducted a national survey of LGBTQ youth with experiences from over 40,000 youths aged 13 to 24. And the survey revealed that these youths have a higher likelihood of anxiety, with 68% reporting symptoms, as well as 86 reporting that the United States political climate is sort of negative towards the community. Furthering statistics from the Human Rights Campaign in a 2018 report, only 24% of LGBTQ youths can be themselves at home, and only 25% have families that show support. 67% of these youths have had family members make negative comments towards the community, and 78% are not out to their parents, which is quite a bit. 48% reported families make them feel bad for being LGBTQ, and the trans community is over 2 times more likely to have this negative representation. In schools, this is what shocked me. 27% can only 27% can be themselves in school, with 13% hearing positive comments, and only 26% always feel safe in the classroom. 73% have experienced verbal threats, with 70% bullied at school, and in the last year, 43% were reported being bullied at school, which surprises me because I always thought that the school environment was more supportive for students and that they could be themselves more at school rather than at home. So how to be an inclusive teacher for LGBTQ youths. You want to avoid fragmentation or isolation of curriculum. So what that means is when teachers fail to connect to the big ideas of the topics that they're teaching in regards to LGBTQ topics. And it's when teachers usually bring these concepts up, like in October, um, which is the LGBTQ History Month, or in June, which is Pride Month. And also when teachers only reference gay men or lesbians, it doesn't look at the community as a whole. So you're disregarding bisexuals, transgenders, and anyone else that identifies in this community that are not only lesbian and gay. So you want to try to stray away from that mentality. I mean, it's with good intent, but it's not necessarily um, promoting a healthy curriculum for the students. With that, you also want to promote a healthy classroom and school environment. You want to respond quickly to anti-LGBTQ language and behavior. So this is important to the successful teaching of inclusive lessons and discussions. You want to address name calling, stop the behavior immediately, and point out what's inappropriate about the comments or actions being made. And you got to remember that no action is an action. So if you just let it pass, then the people that are being picked on are going to realize that, and they're going to realize that you're not being supportive of them, and you allow this intolerance to happen in your classroom. Um, so you want to use this as a teachable moment as well. If someone does step out of line in classroom and uses negative comments or performs negative actions, use it as a teachable moment. You want to decide how to further handle the situation, if you're going to do it publicly or privately with the individual or with the class. Um, you also want to determine if you're going to do it in the moment or at a later time. If you decide to do it at a later time, you have to further determine how to make it a teachable moment, what you're going to implement, and how you expect the students to change from that incident. And you want to support the targeted students, let them know that you're there for them, offer them anything that they might need, any support, and hold the students accountable. So students that are making negative and derogatory remarks, if any disciplinary action is needed, you want to take that up. You don't just want to let it slide. So advocacy and curriculum, you want to approach an LGBTQ curriculum as a school for the best benefit. You don't want to approach it as an individual. You want to make the school responsible for this so they could provide a safe and supportive learning environment. So what are the best ways to advocate among school leaders and administrators for this inclusivity? You want to, the GLSEN website provides a rather short but helpful list of how to bring this up to the school members. I'm only going to name a few, but I do have the website listed here that can help you look at different ways to bring this up to your school administrators. So the LGBT inclusive curriculum benefits all. This promotes acceptance, respect, and teaches students more about diverse people and families. Inclusive curriculum supports students' ability to empathize and connect and collaborate with diverse groups of peers and encourages respect. And lastly, the LGBTQ plus students with inclusive curriculum have a better academic and mental health outcomes and are less likely to miss school. You want to refer to social emotional learning, that's SEL. And GLSEN provides lessons plans that can help students of different ages. In early elementary, it's called Ready, Set, Respect. And that discusses a variety of family structures and addresses identity reflections around gender stereotypes. In upper elementary, it's called Identity Flowers. It encourages students to explore identities, personal experiences with race, culture, family structure, gender identity, and expression. Middle school is Challenging Assumptions, which provides students the opportunity to experience what it would be like to be labeled in a negative way and helps them develop empathy for those with other labels or who are not labeled at all. In high school, it's Learning, Empowerment, and Self-Identification, which encourages students to explore how to self-identify and can be in and how that can be empowering. Whole discussions on what it means to be proud of your labels, and this lesson also explores damages that can be done when labels are assumed by other people. Next slide. Inclusivity in science. So science can be very binary, especially with genetics. So you want to look at nature as non-binary and stray away from polarized points of view. In elementary, you could do this by exploring texts, particularly about animals, since human reproduction and things like that aren't until the later years of schooling. With animals, though, you promote their diversity in gender and family structure. In middle school, you got to be mindful of vocabulary. This is when it starts to get a little bit trickier. You have to teach biology of human bodies that does not reinforce gender binaries. And in high school, you want to acknowledge how Western culture particularly, looks at traditional views of reproduction and discuss how there's many stories that are different from these traditional views. Another way you can look at science in high school is how science is usually seen as like a male dominated field. So you want to look at members of the LGBTQ community or women who have broken these traditional science norms. You can look at, say, Sally Ride, how she was one of the first women to go into space. And I don't remember the guy's name in particular, but he was a gay man who helped to crack the um, it was the Germans like I don't know I can't think of the exact word, but like there's secret codes during World War II and cracking those codes. So you can look at things like that as well. Inclusive curriculum and Common Core for English language arts and literacy. In elementary, you want to focus on pronouns and how they are used and their importance. Students will learn to connect pronouns to people and gender identity and determine which pronouns are working for them. In middle school, write informative and explanatory texts that examine topics such as those of LGBTQ and convey the ideas, concepts, and information through organization and analysis. In high school, you can have students look and analyze complex LGBTQ characters in text, such as in books or articles, and determine how they develop over the course of the text and interact with other characters and how they advance the plot and theme of the text that you are reading. So the inclusive curriculum and Common Core for social studies. In elementary, in respects to LGBTQ history, develop relationships between a series of historical events. A way to do this would be like a timeline of how LGBTQ history has evolved. In middle school, you want to use primary and secondary sources. I threw in the explanation of same-sex marriage legalization here in the United States. You can pull Supreme Court documents or like opinions. Well, no, not necessarily opinions, but other secondary texts that students can cite from that support an analysis. In high school, you want students to evaluate authors' differing points of views on the same historical event by assessing the claims, reasoning, and evidence. So really just pulling from different, from the source and determining how the author has looked at the event critically. And inclusive curriculum and Common Core in mathematics. In elementary school, you want to use word problems that involve equal groups or diverse language. So, maybe throw in different diverse families or people that they're not used to, like not just like the basics that everyone pulls from. You want to change it up a little bit. In middle school, use random sampling or population samples that are representative of various communities. And in high school, assign students to analyze LGBTQ demographics, trends, and statistics, probability, or interpreting different forms of data. You can also technically do that in middle school as well. These are the sources that I've used. I'm also going to list sources in the bio of the YouTube video that will be helpful. And thank you for watching my presentation.